My name is Tom Price, and I come to you today with a presentation that I think will enhance our city of Greater Sudbury and make it a place that will make our people and our children want to go away and get experience and get knowledge and then come back home to build a future. A little bit about me. I've spent over 50 years in the engineering profession and project management. However, those are simply designations. What is more important is applying logic. And what I'm hoping you two will get from today's presentation is that sense of logic. So without getting into a whole lot of other stuff, again, let's enhance our strengths to make coming home a whole lot better. So what are our basic strengths? First one, we have the Canadian Shield. It's a solid bedrock foundation on which to build. Second, we have freshwater reservoirs, and I'll explore that a little bit further in the presentation. Third, we've been a rail hub for more than 135 years. And while some people may resent the downtown rail yards, they have built this city for more than 135 years. Fourth, we have a highly qualified, accomplished, experienced, visionary seniors base to work with. Fifth, we have a ready and willing youth. Most importantly, though, is our community value is equal to the sum of our differences, not the total of our sameness. That's important to remember as we go through the presentation. So, what are the major obstacles to moving forward? Right now, the City of Greater Sudbury has an infrastructure deficit rapidly approaching more than $3 billion. Second, we have a fresh water supply for 30% of the city that is already a health hazard to consumers. Third, we have an economic downturn in place at the present time. Fourth, we have a focus on issues only relevant to the downtown core. However, the major obstacle to all of this is that we have no long-term plan to address these by the city. I hope to change that in today's presentation. What have we done in the past to enhance our city? We've had, since I came here in 1968, we've had any number of projects that were supposed to rejuvenate downtown. And you'll notice on the right-hand side there's a number of projects that are in purple. Those are what I would call surge projects. For example, Sudbury Theatre. It's an evening, 2 or 3 nights a week. The transit terminal is busy in the rush hours. Refurbishing the marina, it's maybe 2 or 3 nights a week. Those are surge presences. So those are all complicated by our parking issue. So where do we presently plan to head in the future? Well, we're talking about this list of projects. And again, most of those projects are surge type projects. They don't address a daily presence in the downtown, and they don't address a lot of other things, which I say consist of the critical component, people. What about the people? What do the people want? What do the people need? What do they see as being important? Well, their priority number 1 is mobility. Number 2 is quality of life. And number 3 is a water supply that is reliable and is safe. These are not my ideas. These are what is out there in everyday world. The mobility, the quality of life, and water are what people go for. Mobility, most families have 2 to 3 vehicles. Quality of life, when they can't get the quality of life they're looking for in one location, they will move to a location where they can have that quality of life. And we've seen that in recent years, where we've seen a migration from the downtown out into the outer regions of the greater city. Water, we're all concerned about water, and we've recently heard presentations at City Council where in the future it could cost us in the order of $400 million to ensure our water supply and make it a quality water supply that we can live on. So how do we address these? Well, we go to Plan B. We encase the rail corridor on Lake Ramsey. Why? Well, Wayne Gretzky says, I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been. So let's go to where the puck is going to be. Let's not rebuild the past. In doing so, let's take a look at our site considerations. As I said earlier, we have the Canadian Shield close to the surface. We can build on it. We have Lake Ramsey water contamination already happening. Chlorides and sodium now outrank algae as a major contaminant in the lake. They make the lake undrinkable for many people with health issues, and they endanger the health of those without health issues. We need to address that. We have a situation where we have the possibility of an existing risk of major contamination from a derailment along the North Shore. We also have, at the same time, twin rail lines through the city, from the municipality of Coniston through to the old Murray Mine site on the former Highway 144, or now MR35. There's twin rail lines there. We can make use of those. At the same time, we have more than 60 years experience in self-propelled, small volume, rail mass transit to White River and back. What would be the social impact of doing a rail corridor? Well, it would facilitate a performing arts center, and all of these you will see as I go through the presentation. It would provide an opportunity to have a library, art gallery, and an ethnic cultural center along it. It would maximize the natural aesthetic appeal of all of these facilities. It would improve public transit via the rail corridor. It would provide a walking trail from John Street to Finlandia. It would provide a cycling route from downtown to Moonlight Avenue. It would provide an improved accessibility for Finlandia residents. We could also include a Condo-tel, an out-of-town medical needs, and I will get into that a little later. It would also improve treatment and recognition of veterans. So what are we talking about? This is Lake Ramsey. Downtown is over at the left where it says Site 4. Site 1, 2, 3, and the one with question marks are sites all along Lake Ramsey where a derailment can be very, very possible. We need to address those. How? Well, in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, you can see a tunnel, 2 sets of tracks. There's no reason that we can't have a tunnel along that entire length. It's 6.5 kilometers long, and we could have a transit rail going down the inside corridor and the freight line going on the outside corner. Being totally encased in a strong structural tunnel, the trains cannot derail into the lake. If we do it right, we can also encase current contamination sources, so that's not an issue. And I'll show you that in a few moments. So if we go to Site 1, this is Site 1. And what is possible here is a performing arts hub. In the background, you can see the Sudbury curling rink. We have street access to this site from there. We also have street access to the site from here. You can see along the edge here, where the track runs along, that there is possibility of erosion of materials. And if you go to a close-up of that area, you can see along here evidence of this stuff washing into the lake. We can prevent that. Also evident here is that there is a significant elevation difference between the backdrop area and the rail lines. It is double rail line in this area, and we have an opportunity to cantilever any facilities we build out over the top of a rail tunnel here and take advantage of that rail tunnel and the footings that it would afford. What am I talking about? Well, if we have a rail tunnel like this, keep in mind I've abbreviated it here, it would run the entire 6.5 kilometers. We could put a performing arts hub in that site that I just showed you. Overlooking the lake could be a professional theater, an amateur theater, other theaters as needed or deemed to be functional. If I go back for a second to the site here, there is room here for both theaters, there's room here for a film studio, there's room here for a Plastic Arts if it should be desired there. There's room for all kinds of facilities up here dealing with performing arts. It would be a home and a hub for the performing arts in Northern Ontario. The beauty of it being, or one of the beauties of it being, if we use this as a transit line, we have transit access from all over the north to these facilities. Rail transit. These buildings could be set back so that the front of them are lined with this, and the top of this tunnel could be used as a rail highway or a bicycle highway. We can also have a walking path along the lake, either up at the elevation here or down along the water. That walking path could extend from John Street all the way out to Finlandia. As well, the bicycle highway, if you will, could extend the same distance, except it would go all the way out to Moonlight Avenue. If we look out the windows, and if you can imagine those theater centers with a backdrop for the theater being a removable one that can move to either side, the symphony orchestra comes in, and you look out the window, out over Lake Ramsey, summer and winter, and I had asked you to envision a winter scene and Christmas carols being played by the symphony orchestra. Or, even on Easter Sunday, watching the sunrise over Lake Ramsey to an orchestral serenade. This is what may be possible. This is a building in southern Italy. It overlooks the toe of Italy towards Sardinia. Instead of Lake Ramsey, it's the Mediterranean. However, our encased rail line could go underneath this, or we could set it back and have our bicycle highway in front of the center. In southern Italy, they had a rail yard immediately behind the center. They didn't get rid of the rail yard. That's commerce. They kept the commerce. They want to make money to support this kind of stuff. So they built a bridge over it. That type of thing is also possible here in Sudbury on Lake Ramsey. If we go to second site, the site 2, if you recall from the first one, this is site 2, and what I'm suggesting is possible here. This is all rock fill from different roads projects and that. This is fill put in for the railway, and although it's not too visible here, if you go to the next slide, which is a close-up of that, it's very visible the amount of silt in that is washing into the lake, and you can see at this point here where it's washing in. This can be enclosed with concrete, the same as we did for the theaters and the Performing Arts Hub, and we can build what I would call a condo-tel above here. You can see the double tracks there. There's a freight train already on the outer track. The inner track we can use for transit. This would be the condo-tel. What do I mean by a condo-tel? I would envisage a condo-tel where the bottom 2 floors is a convalescent staging area for out-of-town people who are in need of being close to the hospital while they're convalescing, and in a quiet, serene atmosphere while they're doing so. On top of the tunnel here, our bicycle path could go straight through, our walking path. However, we can also make an elevator that goes down to the passenger platform for the transit, and down further past that to a tunnel out to a waterfront patio out here. All the sand and silt that you saw in the previous slides is gone. It's encased with architecturally pleasing concrete retaining walls. Lots of parking available. This can be greened with natural vegetation, shrubs, trees. It can be a beautiful site. But one of the key components here, there's no reason that this can't serve as a luxury condominium hotel. And the income from the top floors of the hotel can be used to subsidize the convalescent floors, minimizing the cost of the convalescent floors and maximizing the ability and the attractiveness of such a facility to the private industry, who should want to come and build. If we move further out to site 3, as you saw in the original slide, I envisage this as a visual literary arts hub. Again, you can see the amount of silt and that has been washing into the Lake Ramsey. We need to stop that. We need to put our railway tunnel over this. We need to enclose this so we no longer have this, and we protect our water supply. Again, we have the elevation difference here, that we can have something above this, overlooking it into the beautiful lake area. We could have a library facility, which is our literary hub. We could have an art gallery, which is our visual arts. We could have an ethnic cultural center here. Whether this would be combined with the Plastas Arts and have multicultural ethnic center, or whether it would be other ethnic groups, that isn't decided and won't be decided until it's decided by a group of people with a vested interest in making the whole thing happen. Again, this can be the bicycle route. We can move this back. At the bottom of here, over top of this, we can have an ethnic foods and craft emporium. People can bid, different ethnic groups can bid on having a store in here, a food store and craft store in here for the summer months. Again, the elevator would go down to the passenger platform and would also go down to a level at the water level where boats can come in during the summertime, dock their boats, come up to the ethnic foods court or the art gallery, library, whatever, and spend time there. Go back down, take their boats, and go back to where they came from. This is by no means accurate. It's what I was able to produce quickly. However, this could be encased in architecturally nice concrete. We could have our tunnel coming out here and our docks out here. We could have our library, our art gallery, and an ethnic center over here overlooking the lake. This is the view that they would get from all three of those centers. And you can see the track in the foreground here. We would actually be out closer to this, and you would not see the track or the tunnel from those facilities. We move further east, still at Site 3. The Minnow Lake Veterans Canadian Legion is located here. Beautiful site overlooking Lake Ramsey. Our tunnel will go right past here. We have road access in to both sides, and we can make use of this to make this a central focus point for all of our Legionnaires. We can put Veteran Affairs out here. We can then bring our veterans out to here very easily. With our tunnel, we can again bring the veterans in by rail. They roll off, if they're in wheelchairs, they roll off onto the passenger platform, roll onto a lift, a level lift that carries them up to the Legion level. They roll off. There is no elevation difference for a wheelchair. All of the Legions could be concentrated in that area. They could have separate rooms if they like for the different branches, and we could put Veteran Affairs here somewhere. Again, the walking path, or walking and bicycling, or if you wanted the bicycling highway on the top of the tunnel, it would continue out past here. How do we get to there? As you saw earlier, I said that the Sudbury has been a rail hub for plus 135 years. We have had rail going up to the White River area on Lake Superior. We have rail access going out to Sault Ste. Maria. We have rail by 2 rail lines going south to Toronto, CP and CN. We have a rail line going towards North Bay, although I understand a part of that has been taken up. It can be relayed if we have to. And we have a rail line going out to Cape Riala North. That has been there for 135 years. That has a significant impact on the city and on these communities when you consider that a rail transit system going out to White River, going out to Cape Riala North, North Bay, gathers people from all of these smaller communities. It includes First Nations people from all along the tracks. It includes all these small independent communities along the track. The impact of bringing all of those people into the downtown area of Sudbury is massive. What happens in the hub itself? Well, those rail cars coming into the hub, if they're express rail cars, they can go straight to the hub, or if they're local rail cars, they can interface with bus traffic at any one of the streets noted on here. You don't have to interface with them all, but they are all available, and they can all be interfaced with if we so choose. That would be a matter of where the business is. For more than 60 years, as I mentioned, we've had what's called the bud cars going up to White River on Lake Superior. We've had 60 years of experience at this. These cars are maintained in downtown Sudbury. They're maintained in a shop facility across from the old Northern Breweries on Lawrence Street. They've been running that length of time. We have success. We know how to do that. They're diesel-powered, independent cars. You can have one car, you can have 10 cars. Is that what we would have today? No. This is what we would have today. These cars are natural gas powered. They're clean. They're very energy efficient. They rely on the rolling friction of steel on steel, unlike buses which have rubber on pavement. They have no problems with the weather. They're an all-weather vehicle. They're quiet, and their emission level is a fraction of diesel. And it's a smaller, much smaller fraction than of individual cars going back and forth. One natural gas engine in this will carry the equivalent of 50 gas-powered automobiles. So that tells you what their emissions would be. These are used all over the world, and they're really applicable in countries where they cannot afford cars. So if they can afford these instead of cars, we should be considering it. That brings us back to our Site 4, and I've labeled this as what I would call Turn-a-Town. And the reason for that is we can make this downtown area into a tournament center. If we build the theater out on Lake Ramsey, as I've suggested, and our ethnic culture center out there, it leaves very few other facilities here to deal with, and these dining places that are here can be incorporated in whatever we build here, not as the buildings they are, but when the new buildings go up, new facilities in them. These buildings can be bought out. What would be there? Well, there's room there that if we keep the existing Sudbury Arena and upgrade it, we can build 2 new small arenas and enclose the area in between them as a soccer pitch, a closed-in soccer pitch. This allows us the facility to hold all of the tournaments, sporting tournaments, in this little block of property in downtown. We can have tournaments for hockey, broomball, basketball, soccer, lacrosse, almost any sport you want. The final games of the tournament would be held in these downtown facilities. Why? Well, if we look at this as a sports hub, and we recognize that downtown Sudbury, as we know it, would become a commerce hub, not a sports hub, getting people into and out of sports events is very time intensive. One of the reasons that the Rogers Centre and the Air Canada Centre are located where they are is the Rogers Centre can move 50,000 people into the centre in less than an hour. How do they do it? They do it with mass transit. We can do the same thing. If we want to bring people into these facilities I just talked about, we can bring them in from any distance you want by rail in any direction. They can go, they can enjoy the sports. When they're done, they can get back on the train and go back out to their original point of origin. If they want to have a beer or two, we don't have to worry about people getting in their car and driving with a beer or two in their stomach. They can hop on the train, go back out to Chelmsford, Levac, all the way up to Gogama, or all the way up to Folliat, all the way out to North Bay if we want. We can bring sports teams in between cities. You can charter one of the rail cars and take your sports team to the Sioux for a game. No bus ride, no tiring sitting in bus seats. These cars are comfortable. They can work on their computers. They can have card games. They can enjoy food. They can enjoy drinks. They can do all of that with the mass transit. Why would we do it here? This is an ideal location. When you just take a look at the Rogers Centre and the Air Canada Centre, they're located where you can get at them easily. This is where it should be. On top of that, we are devoting all of this spacing and other spacing to parking. On core weekdays, the downtown area sees about $30 million worth of personal assets depreciating without benefit. If even a portion of that $30 million worth of cars came into the working area by rail, and by that I mean if they work in Chelmsford or Zilda and they work in the downtown commerce hub, they come in by rail, get off the train, walk up to where their place of work is. The night they walk back down, go back out to their community. You've brought pedestrians into downtown. They won't want to drive. They won't want to pay for parking. They will be very glad to get on that train. So why would we do this? Well, last fall we had 16 major projects identified by the city. I've listed them all here as 1 through 16. I've added 17, which is an indoor soccer pitch, and I've added the one that I've talked about here today, the Ramsey Lake long-term city upgrade. These all get addressed by what I've talked about, with the exception of Cape Real assisted living, but people from that can get downtown very easily if there's a rail transit. Cedar Street parking would no longer be needed. It could be turned into a commercial enterprise. Seed to Plate Commons, there's more open space. They can prosper. Uptown Cultural Complex, well, that's not even involved here because that's going ahead anyway, so it's not an issue. Mixed-use development becomes redundant. However, in doing this, what we've done is we've removed pollutants from Ramsey Lake. We've prevented a major rail spill into Ramsey Lake. We've taken a huge reduction in greenhouse gas, especially for people in the outlying areas. We've got an adjustable construction schedule. We don't have to do this all at once. We can time it over many years. We have a stable construction force for many years. If we stage this over 10 or 15 years, we can actually train apprentices to become journeymen in their trade over those periods of time and end up being a training ground for trades. It establishes mass transit in Sudbury. It also frees downtown commercial space to let it prosper as a commercial hub, or a hub of commerce. How did this come about? Well, in taking a look at anything of this magnitude, the first thing you do is define your objectives. You look at the input variables that can prevent you or facilitate you meeting those objectives, and then you design the controls to draw those variables into meeting the objectives. I'm not going to go through all of the objectives here today, but in doing what I've done here, I have looked at these as objectives, and these can be changed. If there's other objectives we should be looking at, it's very easy to change them. For those objectives, I saw the input variables as being these. Cost and cash flow is an interesting one, because what's being proposed here can be staged such that we can address our infrastructure priorities at the same time without imposing undue financial hardships. And required controls to draw all of these into meeting our objectives. So, we have a 10-year program for investing in our community. Who's going to pay for it all? Well, there's the private, municipal, provincial, and federal. Somebody has asked me, what is the rail corridor encasement cost? To the best of our ability, and I've worked with others on this, it looks like about $80 million for 6.5 kilometers from John Street out to Moonlight Avenue. Of that, because the rail is a CP transit system for freight, and because it's on federal land, and because Lake Ramsey is a federal property, we should be able to expect the federal government and CP to finance that tunnel. That's a total of $80 million. Sudbury Arena upgrade. If we're not building a new arena, the upgrade has been talked about anywhere from $20 to $30 million. That would be a combination of private and municipal. Those private companies wishing to make a profit off it should come to the table with some investment. Roads modifications. And this is not new roads. This is modifications. For example, if we have the Performing Arts Center, where I've suggested we would need to change how we drive in front of the turnoff to the arena or to the curling rink. Those types of road modifications, I've said, would be about $20 million, and that would be a municipal costing. Veterans Affairs, that's a federal issue, and the federal government and Veteran Affairs should come to the table to make whatever changes are necessary out there to accommodate that. The Ethnic Culture and Cultural Center, probably partially municipal, partially federal, and partially provincial. The Condo-tel, well, a private hotel owner should be interested in making money there, and because it's a health and safety, the provincial government should come to bat with an amount of money as well. Performing arts, again, a three-way split. Library, I would say the municipality has a responsibility for the lion's share of that. Art gallery, again, because it's a major cultural thing, we can probably get a three-way split. Secondary arenas, because these are not huge arenas and because they do not have the full facilities of a major arena, $20 million per each is probably reasonable. And the soccer pitch, it only requires 2 end walls and a roof, $20 million. So the split of a $377 million investment would be roughly $55 million private, $150 million municipal, $60 million provincial, and $110 million federal. Keep in mind, these have been spread over 7 years as dates of approval. These are not dates of expenditures. Some of these, for example, will take in the order of 7 to 8, 9 years to complete. So the expenditures will go beyond here. These will just be the dates when we approve them or disapprove them, or change them even. We don't have to do all these things. We can change them any time before that date of 2022. We may decide that we don't want the new library out there. We want to do something else or nothing. This allows a plan where we can consider this. So the question is, well, what does this say about the people? Well, these are the people. We've created a people hub out of the city of Sudbury now. This has addressed the environmental, and I've highlighted water protection here as a key one. People interested in a healthy community, our health and welfare people, should welcome this. We've cut down on pollution, we've cut down on traffic hazards, we've encouraged physical activity, we've looked after convalescents. They should be all in favor of this. Politically, it's providing an economic stability for the region, and by bringing people in the way this does, we're providing an inclusivity for our outlying communities that has never been there from the date of amalgamation. Transportation-wise, all of these groups should be interested in doing this. It benefits them all. Community groups, everything from First Nations through to construction trades, we've addressed helping them. These are all people, all of these. Arts and entertainment, we've addressed a whole gallery of arts and entertainment facilities. Sports, we've addressed a major situation with respect to sports. This addresses the people that I referred to early in the presentation as not having been looked at in the past. Well, let's address the people. Let's see whether the people want this or not. In closing, I would like to present one last slide. This is the geographical area contained within the Sudbury district. The city of Greater Sudbury is this small portion right here. As I indicated earlier, we have rail transit from White River, from Sault Ste. Marie, Toronto, North Bay, Cape Riol, and north. What does that mean? Well, from White River, it means we can collect people all the way along that route to bring into the downtown. From Sault Ste. Marie, and depending on how far we go out there, from the Toronto route, from North Bay, and from Cape Riol and north. All of these people get collected to come into downtown Sudbury. All rails lead to Sudbury. And in closing, all I would like to do is say, please consider whether this meets a good plan for the city. In doing this, we can time our infrastructure upgrading to coincide with these projects so that we can afford to do all of these things and come out a far, far greater city than we are now. I thank you for your patience, and please, if you are interested, contact your local member or counselor and ask them what they plan to do with this, if anything. But this at least gives us a plan forward to address the major obstacles I talked at earlier in the presentation. I thank you very much for your patience. Goodbye.